Hello, everybody, and welcome to Live from Beyond. Today, we're going to be playing a new system called Clockwork Dominion. It's Nick's just right in, but there's actually six of us. One of us is going to be joining in a second, and so this is a system of both social combat and intrigue and physical combat set in a Victorian setting that's very, I guess, low-level magic, low-level steampunk. Um, so I'm going to go and talk about the system a little bit before and wait for our last party member to hop in. And once he hops in, then we can cut straight to the game. So the time, as far as the setting goes, is December in 1895. Our Queen Victoria reigns over the known, most of the civilized world. The sun doesn't set on this particular empire. There's certain areas that are not. There we go. There's Nick. Okay.
Right, keep talking. I'll fix it.
Okay. So there are certain areas that are not colonized. The main overview of the world is the world was created by a almost a sort of a deity called the Clockmaker. Okay, he ended up creating the world. He created purebloods, which are very similar to humans in his likeness, but there's a lot of other beings that sort of also emerged along with it. One of the biggest issues that faces the world today is something called the Pontus, and you'll hear us reference it a significant amount of time. The Pontus is essentially nothingness. It's chaos that existed before the Clockmaker decided to create the world, and we don't know why, but slowly the world is reverting back to the Pontus. Right? Not as slow as like our ultimate death, the universe, but at a rate that is some people actually make it their job to try to measure and things like that, right? Some people dedicate their entire lives to trying to fight back the ever encroaching Pontus. There are things that happen all over the world when the Pontus fissures open up, rifts, things like that to different dimensions, to different worlds. There's also like smaller things and a lot of things it's hard to tell from superstition, right? Like in the countryside you might hear farmers talking about a bad crop and blaming it on the Pontus, where it might just be too dry of a season or too wet of a season, so to say. So, or there could be legitimately in some certain parts like blood rain, which you can pretty much blame on the Pontus and things like that. But those are much rarer, and only people that pursue things like that would know about them firsthand. There are Pontus deniers, but those are very, very uncommon. Well, I guess Chester Northington is going to be one of them. But yeah, so there are some Pontus deniers, but for the most part, that's not the case. Everybody sort of knows it, but a lot of people believe it won't affect them in their lifetime. They sort of just go about their day to day, but it's always on everybody's kind of in the back of their mind that it exists, right? There are certain things that our players have on their character sheets that either bring them closer or farther from helping to advance or slow down the Pontus and things like that. Additionally, there are hundreds of pages of rules that we're going to try to squeeze into very brief explanations during the game. So before we introduce our characters, I'm going to go through, just read a very quick introduction. And then we're going to go straight into talking about these characters. So our characters received a phone call, and this is from their point of view. Emmanuel Rudhall, an advisor to the Queen, calls you on the telephone, which is normally a privilege reserved for the greatest emergencies. He calls you on December 22nd at 11 p.m. He's a good friend of yours, and you'll always take his call, even if it is at such a late hour. Emmanuel sounds rushed, frazzled, and whispers quickly into the phone. I need your help. Christmas is fast approaching, I know, but I need a favor. Whatever you owe me, consider us even. He pauses for a moment. No, 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 I owe you after this. A female voice rings out in the background. Emmanuel, where did you go, my love? There's a little bit of silence, and then he says, I have to go, friend. I'm so sorry for the lack of clarity and forcing you to give up your holiday. Please come to the Royal Palace at 8:30 tomorrow morning. I'll fill you in. Bring a change of clothes. I owe you. Emmanuel, the sweet voice rings again, closer this time. Yes, my dear. I was just grabbing a smoke, and the phone receiver slams, and the line is cut short. You're left there holding the phone in your hand, wondering what would do this to Emmanuel. He's one of the most steadfast, stoic men that you know. He's an advisor to the queen. She relies on him so much. Like, you don't even think you've heard this tone of voice come from him. And being a good friend of yours, I mean, you could choose to ignore his request, but I don't recommend you do so.
Sounds to me like
before,
he was advising the queen.
So before we start, let's go ahead. There's a little bit of I want a little bit of introduction for your characters. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through. I have no idea what Twitch order looks like.
Let's see. It's Dave, me, Kim, Kevin, and then Nick.
Beautiful. Okay, so just give a 2-minute explanation about your characters that people would know or would know from seeing you, essentially. Or when you're out in public, how are you normally do?
My name is Dave. I will be playing the Honorable John Neville. My character is one of an esteemed socialite in the high upper classes of olden times England, and when
Nick
seen on the streets,
rose in the best way possible.
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
That's how he always looks, I think.
Yeah.
I know. It took me a second to figure out whether he had frozen. I wanted to wait to be sure. But he's skeptical about your entire background, Dave, just so you know.
What does it look like?
There's like a I don't think so. There we go. All right.
There he is.
You're good.
All right. Sorry, John. Carry on.
We can't hear you. I can hear you twice, as a matter of fact.
All right, go ahead, John
Well,
Neville.
as I was saying, if seen on the streets, John Neville would be in, very fancy garb, looking the part as a peer of the upper class. He's well known for throwing extravagant parties, and so is known by most other peers in social circles that one desires to be in, and he has a very palatial estate in Westmoreland, where his father is the Earl of Westmoreland, and as the eldest son is in line to inherit quite a bit of money, and he definitely likes to have a good time. Pursuit of entertainment is always on the forefront of his mind. He's one to gamble, make a wager here or there, and loves to chat and have a good time.
Okay.
All right. I'm Aaron, and I'll be playing Edward Henry Blakeney at your service, although most of my friends call me Hal. I'm from Mitcham, which is just outside of London town, and I was fortunate enough to be the son of a wine importer, which gave me some opportunities as a child that not everyone gets, going to school and becoming a bit of a scientist. And there's a lot to study, and so I went back and forth. I've done a little bit of everything, and if you see me on the streets, it's likely that I'm just kind of wearing, whatever the hat is, so to speak, of what I'm doing at that given moment. So it could be academic robes if I'm in that particular mode. It could be a smock if I'm working on something at the lab. It could, of course, be some nice clothes if I have a party to go to or something of the like. I've got a bit of money, but I'm certainly not posh by any standard.
Kim?
All right, my name is Kim. We're going to be playing Mr. Conrad Oswin, industrialist and inventor of sorts. I guess if you were to run into him on the street, he would look like a well-kept, average built man. He's usually dressed in a nice clean suit, nothing fancy or name brand, but he likes to at least look as nice as possible. I guess he's known around town as a guy who can make weird and wondrous things. So it's possible that you might have heard his name bandied around time to time.
All right. It's probably you haven't actually met the real Ulysses Winterfig. He's a bit of an elusive character. He wears different costumes, goes by different names. You probably haven't actually met the man, but his name does float around. Said to be a fae, and also said to be a man involved with religion, perhaps. Man with other motives, but hard to say for sure. He's who knows what he'll be wearing today. It depends on really what he intends to do.
Cool. And Baron Chester Northington.
I mean, you just took everything I had. I'm Nick, and I'm playing Baron Chester Northington.
Oh, okay.
The Baron Chester, last name Northington.
Is it though, or is that just the barony? Not to jump on you, but
Anyway, Baron, good old Baron Chester is a military man. You may have seen him before at court, and what you would know about Baron Chester Northington is that how do I put this delicately? He doesn't really make a good showing of belonging at court. This guy won some kind of battle that like nobody's cared about because he's like almost 50 and it's been a while since he saw war. But he won some kind of important battle and got his baronetcy, and like that's the only reason he's here. But otherwise, you really know much about this guy.
All right.
Okay. So the next thing, we're just going to do a few very quick questions. So the questions are as follows. How did the person to your left, Nick, that would be John Neville for you, how did the person to your left aid you at any point, at some point in your life?
Wait, left? Do you mean right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay.
I bet. Sorry.
That's okay.
Your other.
As long as I know who I'm going for, which is the Honorable
right.
John
Right.
Neville.
Okay, so I was kind of thinking about the direction. So what are we saying about this person?
It's how have they aided you at some point in your life?
And I'm sorry, Honorable John Neville. I came in like halfway through your description. Why are you honorable?
My lord, I am the son of the Earl of Westmoreland.
All right.
He's just higher rank than you.
Yeah. I got it. I'm unimpressed. No, I'm very impressed. And how old are you?
I am 26.
Okay, perfect. Okay, the way that the Honorable John Neville has aided me is one of the first times that I came into court, because I kind of I lived abroad a lot during my military travels, but when I finally came and settled and actually had to start coming to court during season, The Honorable John Neville was one of the few people that was willing to kind of like, point out the correct salad fork and stuff like that to me when I came in. So he kind of like got me through a couple of the
crash
a couple
course
of the
in high society.
Yeah, a little bit. He doesn't immediately just reject me as like, wow, this guy is an idiot and doesn't belong.
Indeed, I have had Baron Northington at some of my parties, and he loves to regale the audience with his wartime stories. They are fantastic.
Okay.
These
All right,
Clockwork people love bloody stories.
That's right. Let's continue with Kevin then. We'll go backwards.
Right. Well, you see, just in Northington, bit of a anyways, he aided me one time because we were at a party together, and it turns out we were telling the same stories. I don't really know exactly how that came to be. I don't know why he'd lie like that. But we each decided that we were sort of stepping on each other's toes. So we sort of he actually left to go to a different party. Is a good chap. So he helped me out because we were both occupying sort of the same space narratively, and he decided he would give way.
Okay.
One does become confused when someone else is appropriating one's life. Sometimes it's best
You're
to
like,
just
wait,
go.
no, I definitely am the guy that just won that battle. You're like,
That doesn't sound right to me.
pretty sure it was me.
I believe you, but it confuses me because I
Like you're telling the story really well. Like you could only possibly know that if you were the person, except like it's me.
I did it.
That's
I
me.
did it.
So I'm just gonna go.
Like, I'm the only one who knows that.
All right, Kim.
So I'm doing Ulysses, right? Am I right to assume that Mrs. Winterfig might have been around for some time?
Yeah, he's somewhat prolific. Although, you might not have known him as Ulysses Winterfig at the time. He spends most of his time incognito or undercover.
All right, so
Winterfig is really subtle name.
let's say this, that kind of a long time ago, by I guess normal standards, Ulysses, or whatever he was going by at the time, helped Conrad out with acquiring some starting capital for his very budding business at that point. Say maybe longer than their appearance would tell. Guess there.
Right. Okay.
All right. Yeah, Conrad's been a great friend and very helpful. One of the things that I've studied extensively is engineering and technical matters, and not only do I have a significant library on it at my estate, which Conrad was instrumental in gaining some of the more rare volumes for. He was also so kind as to create for me the small analytical voice, I call it Robin, that comes around with me all the time. Without which my studies would be significantly more difficult to conduct.
Is this like your muse?
It's.
I mean, I'm not a poet, so I don't know that I would consider it to be a muse for me. But certainly, it keeps track of things and can give me little bits of information, and it's smaller and more portable than an abacus. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, I became slightly indebted to my friend Hal here. One time I was throwing a party and needed some help getting a lot of donkeys into a very tight space. And Hal had been recommended to me as a man with a great scientific mind. And I contacted him, and he was expeditious. He made everything just so smooth.
I hope that was the recommendation. They were like, he's really scientifical. You need to get with that guy.
What he's saying is literal too. We made the donkeys extremely smooth by a combination of a rare oil from a small plant that you find only in the Indies, and also a lot of urine. And we just squeezed them in, and then cleaned off the urine, and the whole party was fabulous after that.
Wait, what? Why was the urine needed again?
23 donkeys.
Don't worry about it. You're not scientific enough. Actually, it's funny because that's the party I was at that party, and I tried to tell that story, and Ulysses was like, "No, that was me that peed on those donkeys." And I had to give it up.
And you had to leave.
Okay.
See, it all
Inhuman
comes
amount
full
of pee.
circle.
Hope they didn't pee on my donkey.
I mean, listen, I can't speak to the provenance of the donkeys. That was, John's point. But I mean, I hope it wasn't your donkey. I'm sure it's a very nice donkey.
Okay. So one of the biggest fears that most gentry have is faux pas, right?
A stampede with donkeys. Got it.
Yeah. So in the game, there are actual like technical terms that when you commit a faux pas, everybody that is around you knows and is aware, and it like permanently ruins your reputation. An example is if everybody knows me as like a great linguist, and I, while speaking to someone that is a very high stature, if I mix up, very common words, well then my reputation, as a linguist, might actually suffer. Right. So
when you say permanent, you don't really mean like permanent, right? Like
no, I mean you can lose reputation permanent. Like how your reputations have like numbers assigned to them.
Sure.
A reputation can actually go down and completely get like can lose that reputation permanently.
But you can regain reputation.
You can regain.
Aren't they all fluid?
They are. Oh. But I'm just saying.
I got you.
Then you have to reestablish yourself again as a linguist and so on and so on. But there are certain faux pas that people commit and nobody notices, or maybe one or two people notice it and they don't really. It doesn't. You don't suffer in any way, right? Like not your class, not your means, nothing, not reputation, nothing. It's just that someone's like, oh, did that guy just eat with the middle fork, right? Like something. Some of them are more extreme, some are less extreme. So before we hop into the story, the last question is. It's the person that's two to your. What did we agree on? Right.
So we're getting out of that direction.
Last time we were doing right. We could do two to the right.
Two to the right. So it's just skip one. What faux pas did they commit that only you or a very small amount of people saw and took notice of? But it's not shared as fact. It's not gossip. It's nothing because not enough people, were present. So, So
I'm just like guessing that. Since I went first, two to the right for me is
Aaron.
Is Hal, right?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, what's the question? What faux pas did they commit?
That's like only you know about.
That only you know about. So it's not a real faux pas. It doesn't really damage him in the eyes of everybody. It's not a faux pas in the game sense. But what's social faux pas, or what?
So. As a question here, before we do this, can we go down the board and share what our reputations are? Because presumably the faux pas has to relate to a reputation, otherwise it's just pointless.
It doesn't. It doesn't have to be.
But it certainly could. I like that idea though. Can we do that?
Sure. So just.
I mean, I'm not sure that it would be a faux pas necessarily for Hal not to be exactly brushed up on, the correct forms of address for peerage or how to dine with the Queen. In the same way that it would be for Neville or Northington. Whereas for Hal, if he made an important mistake when it came to, the friction coefficient of donkeys, it would be embarrassing in a way that it wouldn't be, again.
So it's a valid point.
Pretty embarrassing for anyone.
I think the social stuff in this game is also pretty general. Like, we're all at court, and court in itself is exacting, and you could, mess up any kind of
So Aaron,
thing.
if you claim to be great at science, then you make, a scientific faux pas, you could actually get a negative reputation. You could be people can know you for it. No, not erase. You could just have something you could be known for something bad, right? So it's okay. It doesn't. We can go over the reputation, sure. That's not a problem. We can do that real quick. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be related to your reputation.
All right.
Let's go over them in case.
I like Aaron's idea just because.
Sure.
It would be fun to hear everybody's reputation.
I need to start figuring out who people are. So, Aaron, why don't we start with you, since I'll have to do yours first.
Sure. Yeah. So I've got two reputations. One is as a trustworthy fellow. When I say something, I tend to make good on it. and the other is that I quelled a riot at one point. It was a few years back. As you'll, I'm sure, find out, I'm heavily involved in the cause of the Unionists. I believe that it's extremely important for the workers to unite, especially those of us who really have a place in the Clockwork. And by doing so, I'm hopeful that it'll keep at bay the forces of chaos and dissolution. And so we had an event, and there were some folks there who didn't approve of the movement and tried to start things tumbling down the wrong path. And I was so good as to put my face forward and calm things down.
And just to step in here, Aaron, which one are you more known for? Right, there are certain things that you're like.
Yeah. So I'm
exceptional.
more known for the riot incident. There were a lot of people. It was London. The fact that I'm trustworthy, you'd have to have had some kind of dealing with me. The riot was, for better or for worse, page 3 news. So,
okay,
lots of the broadsheets.
All right, go ahead, Kim.
Go next then. All right. So I also have 2 reputations. The lower one, the rank 1 reputation, is as a formidable businessman. Is not super well known because he doesn't deal with very many people, but that he is generally kind of a direct and somewhat formidable person to deal with when it comes to business arrangements. And then the thing that you might very well know him for is I have a rank 3 reputation as a creator of bizarre and wondrous machines. I guess certainly Blakeney would know, but I'm sure other people have heard that, or at least know that Conrad is someone who can make or acquire things that you otherwise can't get to, and maybe even things that are a little bit outside of proper.
So for our audience, a rank 3 reputation is something. It's very high, right? If you never met this person, you have heard about them or read some about them or read some of their works or heard their name in passing. It's unlikely that someone that is cultured or in civilized society would not have heard of someone that is has a reputation of 3 or higher in that field, right? In that particular field.
Oh, and I think I should mention this, that I am a fellow of the Royal.
Well, all right.
I mean, whoa.
It's not a reputation, but I feel like it might fall into the category of
right.
things you
It's
might
important.
know or might play into faux pas.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, Ulysses?
Well, Ulysses Winterfig, I guess I'm not sure how to talk about his reputation as he's a spy, so, you might know him
Everybody knows James Bond.
Yeah, that's true.
Although he has to introduce himself constantly, so maybe no one knows.
Yeah, but as
James
soon as
Bond.
they hear who he is, they're like, "Oh,
This
we're
is
gonna have to kill this guy. It's James Bond."
Maybe he's just a
so
dick.
I'm not sure exactly how the reputation works. Maybe you've heard like of that there's a person out there. But anyways, his reputations are one, that he is a witch finder, which is someone who finds witches and brings them to justice. And secondly, and that is his reputation too. And secondly, that he is a cleric of the City of Canterbury, which combined makes him a witch finder canon.
You're some kind of secret sorcerer, basically.
But like, I don't know, a religious witch finder, which is
you're like basically a voodoo priest. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So just to add to something, Kevin, the reason for reputation is because when you are at social events, how the room perceives you depends on your highest reputation, right?
But if like I'm pretending to be someone else,
so then you cannot use that one. You can choose to not use your highest reputation and use your lowest one. You could choose to use none, in which case the room will start out guarded or hostile towards you.
But wouldn't whoever you're pretending to be would have a reputation?
Yes, yes. Because if you could legitimately pass for someone else, then absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
The stats are all fluid, other than like 2 of them. Kind of
Yes.
like in any situation you want to do something You got to think like who you're talking to or who's looking at you and like how they perceive you, and then like what skills might be relevant. So it's very, very situational.
Mr. Northington, Baron Northington. Sorry.
Oh, is my turn already? Oh, I don't have to make this up. It's on my character sheet. Baron Northington's reputations are one, that he's a mildly well-known British officer, British Army officer. Like, you know, he's not like, oh my God, everybody knows General so-and-so, but people know that there's a bit of a reason why he's a Baron.
You can assume that people in the army have heard of you, right? If someone's connected at all.
Definitely people who have like
militarily.
anything to do with the military. Like
Right.
I think I'm well known enough from my baronetcy that if you were like in the Navy or something, you might have even heard of me.
Mhm.
Another thing that people like to gossip about is that despite the fact that he's been militarily successful and is you know now basically retired and at court, the Baron has not found love in his life. He's pretty well known for that. The other thing you know about the Baron is people kind of steer clear of him, not because he's not. It's not because he's uncouth, but because he's like he comes off as a bit rough. The guy can handle himself definitely, and like people don't really feel comfortable just like chatting with a strong military guy like that.
So, sorry, just to add a few things to Nick. Nick, I'm gonna like out you here a little bit.
Okay.
Nick actually has a lot of reputation on his character. So in some way, either negative or positively, you might have heard about him, right? If you're connected, if you have any sort of military connection, you might have known about. No, the reason I'm saying is because you can't like say like, oh, I'm a lower level army officer, nobody knows about me, and I have like 18 in reputation, right? Like, because it's kind of what you. I know. Well, a 2 is like it's a lot, right? Anybody involved with anyone involved in the army would know about you, right?
Yeah.
And the royal court gossips about you because you are a pretty. You're a good class. You have the means.
I stick out.
You stick out. Yet,
Chester Northington.
I'm the
Yet there's
Baron Chester Northington.
well, but there's no lady in your life, right? That's a big
absolutely.
gossip. That is what people love to gossip about.
Well, especially because the baronetcy was granted to me, and that's like basically a landed title, but I have no heir at this moment to like take over. So it's like why did the queen even give me this shit if I'm just gonna waste it?
Exactly, right? So
it says here that I hate witchfinders. I don't know why it says that, but
he has reputation 9 in hating witchfinders. I just let him keep it on his character sheet. Okay, so, and yeah, okay. So and lastly, John Neville.
The honorable.
Honorable John Neville, please. The Han.
Okay, Han.
My 2 reputations. I have a rank 2 reputation in throwing extravagant parties. People, you know, if you're in the peerage or you're one of my friends, you're very well aware of the fact that I love to throw extravagant parties. You've probably been to one. So it's a fairly well-known thing. That's my thing. I have a lesser reputation of having friends in high places. If you know you're in some of the higher class social circles, you know that I'm fairly well connected and I'm friends with some royalty, perhaps.
I thought your lesser known reputation was going to have something to do with throwing like really low key hungover brunches.
All right. So now that we're going to stay with John. And John, I think
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, Nick, are you a baron or are you a baronet? Because they're 2 different ranks, and you keep referring to a baronetcy, but you've named yourself
a
a
baronetcy
baron.
was just the granting of like the baron.
That's a barony. So there's barony, which is a baron, and baronetcy, which is a baronet, and they're 2 separate ranks, and one is significantly higher than the other. A baron is a relatively high rank. A baronet is the lowest rank in the peerage.
Is a baron not is not a baron a pretty low high rank?
I mean, it's like not the highest of ranks, but it is higher than baronet. So yes, I mean, really, they're kind of one on top of each other. Do you want to be a baron or do you want to be a baronet?
Can he be a baronester?
No, he cannot be a baronester.
Baron Chester.
He is a Baron Chester. So
Baronester Chester.
So now that we have everybody's reputations of, what you guys know about each other, we'll just continue with John. John, I believe you are going to be talking about Ulysses, right? No.
Oh, Mr. Conrad, I believe.
Oh, Mr. Yeah, that's right. Great. I'm glad someone's keeping track of. Yeah, Mr. Oswin. So what faux pas have you seen Oswin, what has happened to him that you noticed that?
Wait.
No.
I think that if we're still doing Nick, he should be talking about me.
No.
Oh, we're doing me.
John.
Oh, you were talking about. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Well, so as it happened, I was throwing a party like I do. I had requisitioned Mr. Oswin to craft a rather intimate device for myself, and as it happened,
Is it like a donkey wrangler?
I need something to collect all this urine.
Otherwise known as the ass lasso?
With the lasso.
I want to hear the faux pas.
I think we've already hit a few of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we really need it to be.
Wait, is this my faux pas or your faux pas?
as it happened, Mr. Oswin delivered the device to the main entrance as opposed to the servants' entrance, which was, needless to say, embarrassing.
You wanted your servants to see it?
Servants aren't really people, so that would be fine.
This is why you're new at
You
this
say
whole court
see
thing.
it. What do you mean exactly?
Okay. So it was essentially Conrad Oswin didn't know to go through the side door, and he's standing
he's
at
an
the front
idiot.
with all of the there's guests arriving, and Conrad's somebody eventually
sure.
squeeze him off to the side or something.
Conrad Oswin is has not quite made it into high society, so he could easily have made such a mistake.
All right, Hal, why don't you tell me about Ulysses' faux pas?
Yes. So it's a bit difficult with Ulysses because, of course, it's hard to tell when you've actually been in conversation with him. But at one point, we were at a party and happened to be standing off to the side, just chatting between the two of us. At the time, he was, I believe, a member of the Royal Society, well versed in all matters scientific, and yet it became quite clear that he had absolutely no knowledge of geometry, even very basic geometry. And as a result, I was forced to wonder exactly how he got the esteemed position that he had, and whether my dear Mother Cambridge had ceased to be quite so stringent in the granting of degrees.
All right, fair enough. All right, Conrad, tell us about the Baron.
So, when Baron or Baronet Northington,
Baron
Northington. Well, so when he first got to court, as I said, he kind of came up through the ranks and was granted this title, not born into it, and needed to be taught. At one of the first kind of high society parties that he attended, he at several points mistook or made the mistake of mistaking the difference between a baron and a barony, or a baronet and a barony, to several people at the party, which was let's
Really
say
embarrassing.
It was like, I'm a baronet, and they were like, and?
They're like, no, I'm
No.
pretty sure the queen.
Like, why aren't you carrying a tray?
All right. Okay, Ulysses, tell us about John Neville.
Right. So, John Neville. It's I'm sure you heard about the thing with the magic user that came and kind of stole some things from him, dastardly everyone, much sympathy was heaped upon him as the clutches of magic are of course well loathed by all good folk of London. However, upon investigation, Ulysses determined that this evil user of magic was in fact just a common swindler who took Mr. Neville in and into his confidence and robbed him quite severely.
Okay, but did not reveal, I assume.
John Neville might know in his heart, but only Ulysses Winterfig knows for sure that this was not an act of magic.
Got it.
Alas, it has been one of my deepest worries.
That this magic user can come back. All right, so why don't we wrap up with Chester talking about Hal.
So when Chester goes to court, he doesn't really like to, participate that much, so he kind of hangs back. And he was there the day that, some fancy baronetess or baroness, I don't know the difference,
Baroness
wanted to hear again the story of Hal's triumphant, aid with the riot and like all of his good deeds. And he was like a little busy in the dark corner of the room with one of the like serving wenches, kind of chatting her up a little bit. And I heard them call for him, and before anybody realized he was in the dark corner, I kind of like, gave him a little tip. I like rapped on his table with my sword or something and got his attention so that he said,
little discreet tip. Brought my greatsword down on the table and was like,
stay away. I was like, Henry, my God.
Okay.
What's wrong with you?
So so it is the morning of the 23rd, right? You spoke on the phone with Emmanuel the day earlier. You arrive at the palace, and
who? I thought we all voted, and all of us were voting not to go to the palace and totally screw the GM, right? Isn't that where we're going?
Yeah.
No, I thought we were voting to all just leave after this episode.
I'm throwing a party. If you guys just want to come over to my place, we'll just
party
the Han is throwing another party, man.
The Han. You can decide whether or not you've been to the palace before, but for sure. I think maybe John Neville at some point might have been directly requested to show up, right? To there, not to like a gathering, but just to kind of like show up, like no questions asked type of thing. But the rest of you, I think your class wouldn't allow for such an invitation previously. So this is definitely like a first time showing up to the royal palace at the request of one of the higher ranking people in the social order of things. Let's put it that way.
Did you say been there before, the Han?
Yeah.
The Han had been here before. Okay.
Yeah, John Neville at some point might have been there. That's up to him, right? He could choose. Maybe he thinks castles are stuffy, the palace is stuffy, he didn't want to go there. But it's unlikely that anybody like really refuses. It's kind of, granted, didn't come directly from the Queen, but an invitation is an invitation. So the one thing that I want to know from you is, how do you show up? If you show up in like a troika pulled by like 3 horses, like a carriage, and it's great.
Well,
if you show up on foot,
what did our whatever his name is, Eugene or something,
Emmanuel?
Sure, Emmanuel. What did he mean by a change of clothes?
I mean, whatever you bring, that's going to be your change of clothes.
Okay.
I'd love to
that's
explain,
kind of what I'm wondering. If
Emmanuel would have to explain, right?
That's what I'm wondering. If there was like a socially understood thing that would mean, even if Baron Chester Northington would it would have gone right over his head. I'm just curious.
No, there is no social thing. He just said a change of clothes. So let's how do you show up, John?
I have my driver drop me off, and I've got a suitcase full of luggage.
Okay.
Baron Chester Northington is like on the back of the carriage on his skateboard. Like,
so just want to check.
Marnik flying it up.
Because I'm not sure exactly how steampunk we're talking here. Is your driver driving a horse and carriage, Lord Neville, or
horse and carriage?
Is the horse made out of like?
Well, first of all, there's no horses. It's only donkeys. Let's get that clear right now.
We used all of those donkeys quite thoroughly. I'm not sure they're going to be any good for pulling
Oh, sorry.
anything.
Those were the last of the fabled donkey.
let's never speak of those donkeys again.
That creature is now extinct.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think that Hal, he doesn't really keep a driver on staff, although he's probably got access to one if he needs it. But no, he's hired a car to just pick him up from his estate across town and bring him over. And yeah, he's not got full luggage, but he's certainly got a small valise to transport his change of clothes. He's currently wearing his academic regalia because he had been engaged in mentoring a student previously.
Okay,
Yeah, it was that barmaid. Everybody knows it.
Conrad.
She is quite the student of a variety of subjects, and I had to administer an oral exam. All right.
Conrad, please.
Oh, I'm not here to save you, Alex.
Yeah, seriously. You're the GM. You take it and like it.
Yeah, eat it, you bitch.
Just like Mary, the serving lady, did.
Yeah, I guess.
Thank God, we need to go to a break.
Conrad's.
This is your fault. You know that, Chester.
Conrad's automobile is currently being worked on for various upgrades, so he will ride his bicycle.
All right. Well, you don't see Ulysses Winterfig arrive because he arrived the night before.
Ulysses Winterfig is like already inside waiting for us.
Yes. Disguised himself as a servant, and got the gossip.
That's it. I was really hoping you'd like disguise yourself as like a pillar in the main hall.
Disguise myself.
He's been standing in one of those, those suits of armor they have.
Yeah,
been living in one of
he's
those
in
for
one
like
of those.
3 weeks.
And no skateboard, Northington. What's the?
Is it
did you
possible
really
to walk
arrive?
to the palace?
It
Is
is.
that like physically feasible?
Yes.
It floats
Yeah.
around in the sky.
Yeah, I do that.
I mean, you had to like talk to the guards in the front that opened like the gates because like
That's
they don't
okay.
really normally, right? They had to let you in through like a side passage because
That's okay. Baron Chester likes to like keep in shape, and
Baron's
he doesn't
taking the
see
main
point.
He
that's
marches
gotta be
everywhere
fair.
he goes.
I mean, he's not quite marching, right? Like he's a little too old for just straight up marching, but he's pretty stiffly walking.
Okay, so for those of you that arrived like normal people, a servant greets you by your name and your title if you have one.
Why is that servant
Mister.
talking in a suit of armor?
And
We know you're in there, Ulysses. You can come out.
No. It's
Why does this suit of armor
Someone
smell
else.
so badly?
the servant takes you.
Yes, Alex.
The servant takes you to a nice study, which is something of what it looks like on Roll20. That's right. There's like a nice study, and he asks you to please wait, and that Mr. Roothall will be with you very, very shortly. So at that point, there are. Kevin, do you want to be in the room? Like, how do you want to? Because
yeah. I mean, like
Kevin's
I
everywhere.
I think when meeting time comes, this guy is important enough that I will like show up.
Because if you want, you could stay in your like servant uniform and be like.
No, I feel like since this guy has requested me personally, I can make an appearance because you know.
Okay, so you show promptly at 8:25 as requested. At 8:30, they lead you into this particularly nice office. And the time, you sit there, you chat, you sort of recognize each other from stories or whether from parties. You talk about politics and the weather. And at some point you realize it's 8:55. You've been there for 25 minutes. It's actually a little bit like you've been waiting for like too long, right? There's like 5 of you, and to keep 5 people waiting, obviously, John Neville is there, and he's like of a pretty high stature, and like yes, it was Emmanuel Roothall requesting, but to request you to come this early, right? You came early, you came at last minute, and at the same time, there's like kind of been no recognition besides stuffing you in this office. So as you are beginning to like look around and kind of realize that, the door opens and Emmanuel walks in. He is dressed very neatly. He has a big bushy beard. It's it looks he's maybe in his mid-50s,
Russian
right?
spy.
And definitely.
He's
Definitely.
gotta be.
Yeah.
Why else
And
would he have a
so
bushy
he
beard?
he closes the door behind. He says, "Where have you been? I've been looking all over for you. We had." He's like, "I can't." He's like, "Your audience is in 5 minutes." He says, "Okay, okay, okay." He's like, "Okay, we have."
I slowly slide back in as a suit of armor.
There's like a faint creaking in the corner. What?
Yeah.
He says,
What happened to Winterfig?
"My friends, I'm very, very grateful that you were able to make it with a 9 hours warning. It was extremely, extremely generous of you. But I thought I had more time to explain this, but I need your help. You have a diversified skill set, and we have a major, major issue that if it gets out or if it occurs, could hurt the monarchy. So please, please, I believe that. So there is a like a little warning bell that rings, and so he like stops and he looks. He's like, "Okay, let's walk and talk. Walk and talk." And so he opens the door, and he says, "Ah, can't believe we had a sorry about. I couldn't find you. We had a servant mix-up. The guy that's supposed to get me didn't come into work today. He was yesterday. I don't know. I'm sorry."
Winterfig. You threw their whole schedule off. They thought there was a guy there covering, and he disappeared. Like, come on.
What do you mean?
So he says, "All right. So what?" So he like looks around, but you're like kind of walking in a hallway, but he's still like aware that there are servants, and so he waits until you pass some servants, till you pass them by, and he says, "So I believe one of the, I think Godwick Lund is actually is trying to hurt the monarchy," and he like
What'd you say?
so okay.
Godwig Lund is trying to hurt the
So
monarchy.
if you have you could ask him who he is, but if you have
I say, Manuel, who are you?
bureaucracy, if you have bureaucracy, you can roll bureaucracy plus or roll. All right, so let me. So you just draw a card.
Let's go over the mechanic.
Right? Let's
do
go
it.
with mechanic, right? So the way the mechanics work is that our characters have 6 aptitudes. They are 2 physical, which are grace and vigor, 2 social, which are reason and focus, and 2 intrigue, which are presence and will. So this one, I'd focus a little bit more on reason, which is a social one. So you take your reason and you add an appropriate skill to it. In this case, the skill that we're testing is bureaucracy. So you test your skill. So you add your reason and your bureaucracy, and you draw a card from the deck, and the card that you draw modifies your result. And if this is a check of 0, so if you beat 0, if you get at least a 1, you know who this person in question is. That goes by the name of Godwick Lund.
Is there
where
a,
the
Do we have cards?
Oh, wait, I see it.
I like
Yeah,
the
so the
most
cards are in the
So-
bottom right-hand corner. Sorry, you have to make the thing bigger. You just
Right
draw
now,
a
Nick
card.
has 3 of them. I don't know whether that.
I don't. Not on my screen. I have nothing.
No, Nick shouldn't have anything.
I got nothing
I
on
see him as having 3 cards.
Okay, so I'm just gonna drag him into the middle.
All right, so I just draw 1 card.
Oh, I accidentally pulled the card instead of dragging one.
Okay, so I
Dave has 1 card for me.
Dave has a card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave has a card. So Dave has a 4. So Dave's total, I believe, is a. What's your
I think
total?
it's
Dave?
8.
All right, Dave, you're like best friends with this guy. No, so you, of course, you know who this guy is, right? Like, you know that he's the that he's one of the advisors to the queen, right? And so the fact that the rest of you can choose to know this or not, or you can ask out loud, right? Asking out loud on something that is common knowledge is a little bit like you really don't know who this guy is, but that's okay, right?
Should
Like
we-
this guy is your friend if you
we
want
could-
to.
Can we roll,
Listen-
quote unquote, if
Yeah.
if we don't have bureaucracy, or do you
Yes.
have to have this?
Nope. You do not have to have the skill.
So if we want to find out whether we know, we should draw a card.
Yep. It's
Okay.
your reason plus bureaucracy plus card.
Can you remind me what happens if you meet the number? Isn't there a way to like partially succeed?
So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like up to the DM discretion. So if let's say you've heard of him, you know that he's a very important person in the royal court.
All right,
Right.
I have a 9.
Yeah, I have a 7.
I fold his underwear.
I get a 0 actually. Does it?
I'm that
Do you
guy.
have to beat it, or
No,
does a
so
0
Nick,
pass?
Nick,
I have a
what's your-
6.
Okay, so a 0, Kim, you know it's someone in the royal court, right? For anyone that's above, I think 6 is like a massive. 4 is like a massive success. So 4 or higher, you know exactly who this person is. You know that it's one of the advisors to the queen, and you know that and you know that that this person is well respected, right? So to hear Emmanuel Rudhall essentially badmouth one of the advisors of the queen, saying that he's like upset the monarchy, like this is weird, right? This is like a very delicate situation. Yes, Chester.
We have to keep these cards, right? Because doesn't the full
Mhm.
deck matter?
Mm-hmm. The
Okay.
full deck matters, so don't.
I'm
put
just
the cards
making sure
away.
people don't like trash them or whatever.
Yeah, don't trash them yet. All right. So, so the reason that Nick brought that up is because somewhere in the deck there's a card called the Doom card. When the Doom card is drawn, the Pontus leaks. Is the best way to put it. Something weird happens, right?
This is why we need that urine-containing device.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
When the Doom card is drawn, that
It's
Pontus
okay.
is a leaking.
It's okay if it doesn't show up, right? That's not expected. There's like 100 cards in there, so it's okay if it doesn't show up. But if it does, then
No, but it also
something-
matters because we don't want to start recycling cards, right? There's a specific number of 4s and 3s and stuff like that, so we don't want to accidentally.
So as you're walking, and Emmanuel tells you this, he says, "I know. He says, "I have no proof." He's like, "This is." He like sighs. He's like, "This is the craziest situation I've ever been in." But here's the plan. We believe that Godwick is trying to ruin or upstage Princess Arabella's Christmas Eve gathering.
Like,
To what
She's having
end?
one. So he says, I don't know. He said, I have absolutely no idea. But I have a one of the princess's friends, best friends, a trusted person within my circles, came to me, directly spoke to me. We spent a probably not a very wise amount of time together, and we talked. And she told me that this is that even the princess's life might be at stake. And so I called on the people that I trust the most, and now so the queen knows about this, and even the advisors know that that something is going to happen at this ball, but they don't know that Godwick is involved, and that's the problem. So now he says, as you're like walking, the doors to the main chamber are like coming up as you're walking, and as the clock begins to chime 9 a.m. right at the end of the chime, that's when it turns 9 a.m. As he's walking to it, he's like, and now I have to convince them that you're the right people for this job. And he like, you could see like a little bit of like sweat like breaking out and like rolling down his forehead, and he takes out a napkin and like dabs at it and like wipes it out. He's like, and now I have to convince them that you're the people that I trust, and that you're the ones to help Princess Arabella and help the monarchy. And he says,
But you're definitely not.
and with that, he like the chime rings 7 or 8. You sort of stop counting unless you were meticulously counting, and he swings the door open.
Wait, the chime rings 7 or 8, isn't it 9 o'clock?
Yeah, so there's like two more dings.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like, right? He opens the door, and you walk into this grand throne room, right? It looks something like this on Roll20. So
Shabao.
Shabao is right. So in this throne room, you see Queen Victoria sitting down on her throne, and in front of her are two gentlemen and a lady. They're all dressed very fancy, very royal court-like. Um, all of you immediately recognize Godwig Lund, right? He's standing there. He's like, he has his hands crossed. He's kind of like looking at, he's like just kind of seeing who is walking into the, who's walking into the court. And then once he sees Emmanuel, he relaxes a little bit, but then he sees the five of you trailing behind him, and he grows a little cross. So now,
do we walk in like slow motion, really intimidatingly, like we're his posse?
Doors boom out, and we're all like swaggering in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, I have a counter question for you. How does Baron Chester Northington walk in?
Well, Baron Chester Northington is pretty like
Snacking on a crumpet. That's how he walks in.
He's got his mouth full of like whatever pastry was
Baron
in the
Chester
anteroom.
Northington
He's
is like
oh
pretty.
Not
pretty
again.
concerned.
Am I a baron or a baronet?
That's the mother flipping queen.
He's pretty concerned about your assertion that there's like a potential problem facing the monarchy, right? Like the empire and the glory of it is like that's his thing, man.
Does he assassinate Godwig right where he stands?
Just like
No,
pulls
but
his
like
sword
he's
out,
kind
and
of
he's like, "You."
he's kind of thinking about it, right? And so Baron Chester Northington, like he came in like full military dress because that's like basically what he wears whenever he goes to court, right? Like he thinks that's what he's supposed to do is like show his station. So he's like a little bit intimidating, right? I mean, he's a little older, but he's still like a big guy, an intimidating, well-known like rough and tumble dude carrying like a sword and gun and stuff like that. And so like he comes in looking like with a hard stare towards the folks at the throne.
You're probably not carrying a gun into the throne room.
I don't know. I don't remember if I have a gun. I definitely have a sword,
You
a sweet sword.
You do, but no, you cannot physically. They will not allow you to carry a gun. So
Oh
let's
yeah, I
say
don't
you
think
left some
I
weapons.
don't think I would carry my gun because my gun is like a full-size rifle with a bayonet on it. I'm not like walking in like
No.
Probably got some kind of
so as
ceremonial saver.
As you walk in and the clock, rings the last bell, a servant off to the sides begin to announce the newcomers. And he says, the Honorable John Neville, Edward Henley Blakeney, Conrad Oswin.
Wait, the servant missed the opportunity to say, but his friends call him Hal?
He did. Ulysses Summerstorm and Baron Chester Northington. And like at some point you see Emmanuel kind of like look at the servant and then like just like shake his head like and give Ulysses like a weird like a very very slight like what like how did he get that name sort of thing.
Say, are you of the Denver Summer Storms?
Denver's what you're going with.
I don't know.
That's what you decided would be best in this situation.
I don't know.
So-
I picked a thing.
Yeah.
You did pick a thing.
You went
And
with
so-
it. It's fine.
So
Now we all have to live with that.
and with that, Emmanuel sort of walks up to the stage where the other three advisors stand before the queen. They're sort of in front of her. She's sitting down. They're standing maybe 4 or 5 feet in front of her so that she has a clear view of you, you have a clear view of her, and you have a clear view of all of the advisors.
Let's look at the princess.
And so at some point, she
Did you just like hand him a bucket of ice cream?
Hell yeah!
She just walked
Wait
in,
a second.
dropped off like a
Alex,
quart
I
of
thought
ice
you were
cream.
dieting.
Gotta share with
I am. This
everybody.
is like the dieting ice cream, Aaron.
Oh,
That
yeah,
doesn't
sure.
even make any sense.
The
So I
dieting
am.
ice
You know
cream.
why? Because there's no fucking spoon.
Oh, that's fair. You're not just gonna like.
your face in there.
God already gave you 2 spoons, Alex.
She just
So-
walked in, dropped off like a pint of ice cream, and just walked right back out. That was amazing.
And so Emmanuel walks up to where obviously is like his place, which is on the queen's on the left side of the queen. Just to the left of him would be the female advisor, and to the right are the other two, which are
So when you say left side of the queen, is it the queen's left or our left?
Queen's left. Queen's left. Sorry, Queen's left.
It's got to be Queen's left, right? Our left is not important in the face of the Queen. Like,
Yeah. So Queen's left is first is Emmanuel, and then and Somar. And to the right of the Queen are first. If for those of you that I'll let you keep the roll from the last one because it was like pretty good.
because we're all like experts at court, except
yeah,
one
Except
of
for
us.
me. I'm
you know, Summer.
these people belong here, I guess.
We'll say Conrad will pick up some of the context clues because everybody else like destroyed the roll. So Somar
We're in the
Gottlieb,
castle. I see.
Somar Gottlieb to the left of the Queen. So is Emmanuel Rudhall, who he's advisor on fashion, intrigue, royal court, things like that. To the next to him is Somar Gottlieb. She is the advisor on finance, economics, and treasury. To the Queen's right, we have Colin Petley, who's advising the Queen on war tactics and international affairs. And next to him is Godwin Lund, who is an advisor on religion, magic, and the Pontus. So,
How impeccably dressed is the fashion advisor?
you mean Manuel?
Yeah.
He's like really good looking. He's like,
I didn't ask how good looking he was. I said, how is he dressed?
he's very, very well dressed. He is like, you're not really sure if you've seen this fashion tomorrow, but it will be in like the papers tomorrow about as like the latest craze. Right. So the Queen is sitting down. She is dressed. She sort of like tilts her head a little bit, and just as she's about to speak, Colin Petley, the advisor to war tactics and international affairs, he says, "Oh my God, Emmanuel, what is this for? Like, is this
Why
for
did like the
Arabella's thing?"
Fantastic Five just burst through the door looking really purposeful?
And so, for those of you that are aware or choose to be aware, this is extremely rude, right? He is dismissing you to your face in front of other people, right? He like chooses
that's not
to
all that
even-
important. What's important is that he cut off the queen.
Hmm.
He can
She didn't
insult
start.
me.
She didn't start yet.
That
That's
doesn't
important.
matter. He ought to be
That's
in-
important.
he ought to be
The Queen is
in-
always in the middle of starting.
And yeah, that's why everyone should always keep their mouths flipping shut. And
Did you just like pull a spoon out of your donkey?
Yeah,
And
it was
like,
from my dinner. I have a spoon here. I had soup, so
well, you can't
plan
mix
spoiled.
though. That would be
Yeah.
horrible.
I'll
do that.
survive. It's either that or-
he'll make do.
Oh, pause a bound here.
So as he says that, so there are some other people scattered around the room, right? There are a few servants, a few guards, a few nobles and royalty that are just out of sight or out of. There are whispers going around, right? It's a little bit. There are overall maybe 15 people in the room, including you. So maybe 5 or 6 other people, not counting like servants, because servants we don't count them as people, right? So maybe 10 or so other nobles like altogether, and the whispers do sort of go up. So at this point, this turns into an intrigue encounter, right? Mm-hmm. Because somebody sort of directly chose to not attack you, but draw you into it.
He didn't even think we're important enough to attack us. I mean, that's
right.
That's
but you are drawn into it, right? That's the main part. So with an intrigue encounter, the first thing is done is esteem is calculated. Esteem is how the room perceives you, I guess, right? And the way it is, it's your so first of all, that's just
you
at the
want to go over
tenor.
the dispositions?
Yeah, sure. So the tenor first was the tenor. So this particular encounter, depends on the average class of the people present in the room. Now, because the Queen is present, she's a 5, and she's all the way up there. There's a bunch of 4s, and a bunch of 3s and some 2s. The average that I'm going to give this room is 4, just because the Queen is here, right? Like, it's not really the average. The true average would be actually closer to a 3, but the queen is here, and that sort of raises it a little bit above, right? So the tenor is 4. So with that, your status, which is, let's not lie here. Hold on, learning on the go.
It's okay.
Yeah. So essentially, it's your status trait, which
Your
is
class, you mean?
your highest class, or your esteem, your highest one. You can like choose.
Wait, what do you mean
So-
your highest class or your esteem?
So if your means, I'm sorry, not your
Okay.
esteem, your means or your class, whichever one is higher, you can use it here. That's why it's called like status as opposed to like
Right.
class. So
Class.
you
sure.
use the highest one, right? Minus the tenor. So you get 4 subtracted from your class, then plus or minus a relevant reputation. Now, a relevant reputation in this case will be the queen and these nobles. You can assume are well versed in are well knowledgeable in matters of the court and people around them. So you can use your highest reputation in this case. You assume, but that's what you're going to be like known for, kind of, right?
Gotcha.
So there's no roles here. First, you calculate the esteem, and this is how.
What would the final number? So your status minus the rooms,
Tenor.
whatever it was, plus your reputation. What does that value mean? Mine is a 1, by the
Okay,
way. I get the
so a 1 means you are. I believe with a 1, it's indifferent.
Dispositions matter?
No, dispositions is how like different people perceive you, because each person can have their own like thing towards you, or you could have. So this is a lot of
Sorry,
dispositions
Alex.
are done towards enemies.
So I
Sorry, it's in. I think it's indifferent, Kim. I think everybody starts out guarded against you because they don't know you, and for every bump that you get, you go to indifferent, then agreeable, then favorable. And so this isn't how a person sees you. This is how the room sees you, right?
Okay.
This is how the room, like how the people of the room, right? If you have, if you get like a very high average of everything, you are favorable, and the room is like, oh hey, it's this guy. We love this guy, right? If not, then so you start out with guarded. Everybody's, I believe 0 is guarded. I'll check later, but we're gonna start there now. So 0 is guarded, which means they're all like, this guy, I'm wary of him. Yeah, and indifferent means like, oh, and just another person, right? So a 1 is indifferent. So what are
Okay.
everybody's esteems to start?
Mine is 2.
So you're agreeable. The room's agreeable towards you, Aaron.
Which, like,
Well,
Lahan, that's going to have
indifferent.
like a mechanical effect. Is the
Yes,
point?
it will. It will.
That HGIAF or whatever means like when you go to do something, it's easier or harder, basically.
So I know Ulysses. What did that leave you at?
So I didn't understand. I need to.
What's your class?
Class?
Two?
So I think it's a 0. I think it's a 0, Evan, from what it looks like.
Your class is a 2, right?
Right.
Yeah, class
That's
plus
two.
reputation plus your
And
highest
what's-
reputation.
And your highest reputation is a 2, right?
2.
So you're at a 0.
And 4 is the room. The room test. The tenor of the room is a
Oh,
4.
that's what the tenor is. Okay, I didn't understand
Yeah.
the tenor is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
right.
so-
Yeah, I'm at 0. So I'm at
So you're right. No, that's not it. It's guarded. The room's guarded against you.
I thought it started out indifferent.
No, it starts out guarded. 0 is guarded. Indifferent is 1.
Okay.
Right?
And the
And
sheet says indifferent plus those things minus 1/2. So
The different sheets have different calculations, which also don't all match the book. So I think it depends on which sheet you're using.
I mean, using the sheet from the book. Okay, whatever.
The original one,
The sheet from the new book.
one that says
Okay.
guarded plus class means difference plus best rep minus worst rep.
No. Indifferent plus tenor minus status plus minus 1/2 of relevant reputation.
Okay, so
I think we're
get
gonna have to
half
look at
of
it
your
later because
reputation.
in the
so
old version, the base is guarded, and in the new version, the base is
I
indifferent.
think overall most everybody will end up very similar because it's plus half of reputation as opposed to plus full reputation. So I think you'll end up very similar at the same exact spot. Because then you'd be -1, right? Which would put you into
in the old version, they want you to take the difference between your best and worst reputation.
Right.
Like,
Okay. So Nick, tell me what's yours.
Uno. I think we're like
No,
all
okay.
basically.
So
except Han
everybody
is
except
Big.
Hana who's agreeable.
And
Right.
Ulysses is
Big
one
is like
lower.
probably a 0, but whatever. Nobody
Right.
trusts
And
Big
so
anyway.
and so you send up, so you stand there and you're kind of this dude, this guy, he like sort of like looks you over, and he's gonna be like, so he looks again at Emmanuel and he's like, Emmanuel, I think I told you that maybe maybe we shouldn't bring all this royal court nonsense when we have more pressing issues with all of the unrest going on all around us. Right, and so Emmanuel just sort of he says, "No, Colin, you gotta." He says, "I feel like it's more important than that." Right? These are experts in their own right, and he's right, and so he sort of like it essentially sort of gives you the floor, right? Where he sort of points in your general direction, and he's like, "These are experts in their own right." It's like, and this needs to be addressed.
Right.
And he like almost like looks at you like almost I wouldn't say pleadingly, but like.
Well, okay, so I will make a full bow to the court and address the room and the queen as well. Your Grace, my friend Emmanuel has brought me here, and it sounds like under some dire circumstances, he feels as though the princess's life may be in danger. And if this is the case, I think that this is quite a suitable thing to be discussing at this time.
So Colin sort of leans back and he looks at Emmanuel. He's like, "You really think her life is in danger?" He's like, "Is that? Do we have like papers on this? Is this confirmed?"
Is the queen
Right,
or princess or whoever reacting to that?
Well, she is. So if you study the queen, she sort of like raises her eyebrows. She doesn't say anything, right? She's listening to her advisors talk, but she like raises her eyebrows in like a questioning. Like when John mentions that the princess's life is in danger, she sort of like raises her eyebrows and is like, "Is it seems like she almost didn't know that, right? Like maybe that was like
She almost didn't know her daughter was in danger.
well, it's okay, right? So sorry, so yeah, so that's like the queen's reaction, but for the most part, she's listening to your conversation. She's watching, the conversation between Colin and Emmanuel and you guys, obviously. And so Emmanuel says, it's possible. He says, I don't want to discount anything, right? I believe that these 5 fine gentlemen are each so well known. They will be the perfect placement into Arabella's Christmas Eve. If they're there, they are 5 people that I trust. And so, right, and so they look, and so the 4 of them kind of like stand and look at each other, and the queen like stands up, right? She stands up and she walks forward, and she says, Mr. Neville, says, I believe I've been to one of your parties.
Your Grace, I believe I did have that pleasure.
I was there very, I was there very briefly, but I recall it being very a very boisterous event. A lot of entertainment all over the estate.
It is my ambition to create an enjoyable experience for all of my guests, Your Grace.
She says, I understand. I understand your being there, Mr. Neville, at this party, but please forgive me, Mr. Blakeney. I don't see how. Mr. Woodhall has mentioned your expertise, and I believe I'm not familiar with yours. If you could please enlighten me.
Well, Your Majesty, I've got a variety of expertises. I'm quite well versed in the sciences, in invention, and I'm pretty good at keeping a lid on situations that seem about to burst. You may have heard of me from the Northgate riot incident a few years back. So it's my distinct hope that I may be able to be of service here.
Oh, and she thinks she's like that's right, I do remember that. Says thank you very much for pointing that out to me. And then she looks at Ulysses, like directly at him for maybe a second, like too long, right? And then she like nods her head like knowingly, right? And like she sort of like looks at Emmanuel and like looks at Ulysses and like nods her head like, all right, like okay, right, like this is fine. And then she says, Baron Chester Northington, I know why your presence would be greatly there.
Why is she being all smarmy with me? The hell?
No, what are you talking about? She says she knows exactly why you're going to be there. Says you would be perfect. And she's
Whoa.
and then so then she turns over to Oswin, and she says my dear Mr. Oswin, I think as a society we are indebted to you for all of your inventions.
Say,
And
you're too kind, Your Majesty.
So as she pauses for a moment from what you think maybe to speak, at this point, Godbook Loon speaks up. He believed that she was done speaking. Whether or not this is like a faux pas, like maybe because you see her like front, right? Because she's sort of standing out to you, and then he walks up and he says, "I'm with Colin, Your Majesty. Is this really necessary? I love Princess Arabella as much as the next Englishman, but we're essentially invading her party and her privacy with this, right? To just because we have an unconfirmed source of what we don't even know."
Good question.
Say,
You know what? You're right. Let's all just go home and
say, excuse me if I'm speaking out of turn, but would it not be better to be safe than sorry in this case? I imagine this is a well-attended affair. I assure you that, or I very much doubt that five of us would crowd the place.
You won't even know I'm there.
That's a
Wait,
voice from
are there any
suits
suits of armor?
Who said
That
that?
suit of armor has been doing at the punch bowl for 5 minutes.
Okay, so at this point, Godric sort of like looks you up and down, Oswin. He says, Oswin. He's like, yes, I think I read about an invention of yours or something. It's a little bit dismissive, but he's like, okay, he says, yeah,
The servants' entrance.
at the John Neville party.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says, yes, I've heard of you. He says, these situations can be so touchy. We can't have news. If you are to go into this event, you have to and he like almost looks flustered, and he says, "Behave." And he sort of like pauses, and he says, he's like, "I'm not trying to be vague." He says, I'm really not. But at the same time, I feel Princess Arabella's reputation might be tarnished even more if people find out that we've, for all intents and purposes, injected 5 people that weren't supposed to be there to begin with."
Why didn't you just invite us?
Are you saying that I was not to receive an invitation? my lord?
Oh shit!
Uh-oh, it's going
Oh
on.
boy! Oh boy!
So Emmanuel pulls out his like little notebook, and he's like looking through it, and he says, "The
What happens if
invitations."
Emmanuel makes a faux pas?
He says the invitations went out 2 weeks ago.
Ooh, this is awkward.
John-
Why don't you check your mail and get back to us on whether or not there's an invitation in it?
Or have the guy who checks on the guy who checks your mail check it.
Yeah, exactly. He may be dead.
Says I'm
You did what?
Says I apologize on behalf of the princess. It must have been an oversight on her part.
Wow.
Did you just throw the princess under the bus?
Is,
in
is,
front of
is
her?
there
Yes, he did.
Savage.
is there like a backtrack stat? Because that guy is. Oh, God.
So he. So the entire time, Somar Gali, she's like standing there watching this exchange. She doesn't say anything. She's just standing there quiet, and she says, what?" She looks at this and she's like, "This is a waste of time. Let them go, right? Like, let them go. It's just a party, right? Like, what the worst that could happen is they have a good time, and the best is they help the princess. Am I right?" And she like looks down at you guys. So as she
Well, lady,
says,
it is unquestionable that if my Lord Neville is there, then the princess's party will only be improved.
so at that statement, Aaron, no, why don't you give me a roll for that? Because that was like pretty good.
That's a baller.
All
If
right,
you
what am I?
have- So if you have any sort of like command or guile, right?
got-
Or
He's not
I've got
lying.
command, I've got guile, I've got composure.
He's
All
got
right,
it
yeah.
all.
so give me like a reason plus guile, right? Where you're
Alright.
like, hey, listen, if this guy's there,
All right. Draw one card.
Provided the queen can supply a few donkeys, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, we all know what you're saying there, Han.
Hey, once
Everybody knows.
once John Neville's there, it's a John Neville party.
So the card is a 0, and the others put together are 5. So we've got a 5.
okay. So the
We're gonna
difficulty
break the shit
was
out
a
of this.
1. I should have told you ahead of time. The difficulty, I bet it's sorted from like it's in like order from 5 to -5, right?
That's very
Um,
possible.
Fine. So it's you beat it by 4, which is enough. And so she smiles at you, and you hear whispers pick up around the court, all around you, and you hear like giggles coming from some of the corners of the room as people obviously recognize that this was a joke. It wasn't good, in good humor, and at the same time, it makes both John and yourself look bad. So the the esteem for both of you guys shifts by 1 for temporarily, right? Because
Up or down?
up.
Okay.
So I think
Good question.
it makes John right. So I think it makes John look favorable and it makes you agreeable, right?
Okay.
So this is a temporary like boon, essentially,
Okay.
right? So so she sort of like laughs at your joke, right? And she nods her head, and you even see the queen like do like a little bit like of a smirk, right? Because it was well received, and so um, Emmanuel like looks up questioningly. He's like, does that mean we should discuss that we should discuss the details. And he like looks at the at you five, like, you know, he's like this is good, like this is working well. And so you see that the four people that are up on stage, four people are nodding their heads, and one of them is just like kind of like has like a smirk, like a come on, right? Like, are we really doing this? So Colin is the only one that's like not convinced, right? Like Somar's on board, Emmanuel's obviously on board, Godwick is sort of like, yeah, right, whatever, and and Colin is the war tactics, international affairs. The Queen is even like, yeah, like what could it hurt? And Colin is still standing there, and he's like, well, I think I'm outnumbered here, but I guess do your worst. Don't ruin the queen's. Don't ruin the princess's party. He says I think that should be priority number 2, and he like sort of like laughs to himself.
But ruining the party should be priority number 2.
Yeah,
Not
don't
really.
ruin the party.
It's fired.
Number 2 priority: ruin the party.
Got a lot of options here, guys.
Nice.
And so as you as he says that, it seems that the room liked your presence there, and he Emmanuel like takes steps down from the stage and he walks towards you, sort of like ushering you out the exit. Sorry, and so as you walk out the hall and you like close the door behind you, he lets out like the biggest sigh. All right, he's like of relief. He's like, oh my god, and he's like I can't imagine that going better than it went. And he says, Ulysses, I had to fill in the Queen a little bit as to your background for obvious reasons. I know some of the other advisors had questions about you, but I think the Queen's decision towards you was met fairly well.
I say, of course, I understand completely. Just a humble servant.
In his Australian accent.
Yeah.
And he says,
Frankie.
and I think one of the hardest jobs might fall on you, Baron. And he puts his hand on your shoulder.
He's coming on to your
Wait, this guy just touched my shoulder?
Baronet.
Drop trow.
He's a friend
Get
of
in
yours.
there.
It's a baron with a bayonet. That's why I get confused about the bayonet.
Oh, okay. I see now.
That's the thing is. So wait, did this guy just touch my shoulder? Is this like, how much time do we have left? 8 minutes? Do we have enough 8 minutes for me to kick this guy's ass for touching my shoulder?
We don't have enough time for that, but if you want to do anything else to him,
No, it's a friendly touch. He's like, this you might have. The hardest job.
yeah,
It's a little too
I'd
far.
say it's a friendly touch. The Baron's BNC ain't into friendly touch. Oh my god, what's going on back there?
Look, I say,
Something's happening in Ulysses land, and it's like
if we're
robbed.
to if
it's
we're
being
to
robbed.
help,
Ulysses, you're being robbed.
Robbed it in. Right.
if we're
Anyway,
to help, why don't you fill us in on the
I
details?
just like give this guy a look when he touches my shoulder.
Okay, so
Not
he,
like a
like the kind of look you give somebody at a John Neville party.
No, definitely not the kind of John Neville party look.
It's only one
That's
kind of
that's
John
called
Neville
giving
party.
somebody the Han, and when you
Okay,
give somebody
so-
the Han,
so before we wrap,
as the phrasing goes around town, when you give someone the Han, it's definitely on. That's how we talk
there
around
it is.
town.
I leave.
so he pulls you, he escorts you back to the room where you started, back to the side of the waiting room, and as
You're sure
you
there's
know,
not like an Italian guy getting married that's trying to mess stuff up? Is that like that's not a thing here?
I'm not sure I get the reference.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't think it's
Just,
I think
it's
they're just having
it's
a
just
stroke.
for Alex.
what?
All right.
It's just
So
for
wait.
Alex, but Alex looks even more confused.
Okay, so anyway, so you end up going back into the room, and he says, okay, so Baron, you're gonna have to
Wait, he's taking me back to a room and saying, "Baron, you're gonna have to something."
all 5 of you. He takes all 5 of you back to the sitting room.
Now it's a John Neville party.
My God, yeah, that's already halfway to a Han party.
Now we're getting the Han. Now we're getting the Han.
John Neville's smile just keeps growing.
Okay.
The Han.
So he says, so we need some. There are 2 people that are going to be attending the Webb twins, and he like
What?
But sorry, let him finish. The what?
William. He says William and Stephen Webb, because they are how should I say this?
They're the people. I thought that's what we were attending. I was confused. I thought
No.
kind of weird code for something like.
He says they are the other 2 men that are going to be at this party.
Only 2 men at this party?
Only 2 men.
7 if you include yourselves.
Well, wait, we're not sure about Ulysses Winterfig, right? He's
And
very
how many ladies?
7.
I like those odds.
the Clockwork world's first sausage party.
Wait a second. So there were going to be 7 ladies and 2 gentlemen at this party.
No,
Those guys must be
there's going to be-
pissed.
There's going
And
to be 7 and 7.
nobody consulted John Neville for it. But that's what we're to believe.
And 5 were he says are going to be asked away.
Oh, that's
What
going
does
to
that
be
mean?
awkward. All right.
You mean like
He says-
wait? So we're literally supplanting 2 people in this party?
We're supplanting
5.
5 out of the 7.
5 people.
So now we begin to see why Lord Neville didn't get an introduction.
Quite intimate Christmas party.
You know, I
for
thought
Princess.
this was a rather larger shindig than it appears to
Yeah,
be.
I mean we're like 30% of this party.
Yeah.
It's a little
Yeah.
awkward.
Yeah, well,
Weird.
so
Stick with me, chaps. We'll make it through all right.
he says
You didn't even get invited. Why should we stick with you?
Well, I mean, it's either that or sticking with the suit of armor over here.
Why is this candle
So-
holder coughing?
he says you see the people that were coming to his party, it was almost going to be it's Princess Arabella and her games. None of the people know each other or know that they were coming. They might know each other, but they didn't know they're coming, which was
Nobody
why
at
the
an
guest
honorable
list-
John Neville party ever knows when they're coming.
It's gonna end up in like a what's that thing with the puppet guy jigsaw?
Oh,
What?
Saw.
God.
This is
Good
like
Baron.
a Saw
Like a
situation.
saw situation, yeah.
So he says
We show up and Arabella's like, "Do you want to play a game?"
Yeah.
I was
because
like,
as
what I like for Christmas is to just torture and murder people.
Because as you guys know, as you guys know, she has a very quirky personality.
Oh
See?
man, that
See?
sentence could have gone anywhere.
Yeah. Here come the bear traps. It's always quirky, and then your head is in a vice.
That sentence could have gone
This bear trap's
anywhere.
quirky because it just kills you.
See, it's quirky AF.
So says it's also so because of that. This is why this is a very small party. It's a small gathering. He says, and finally, and he like leans down. And he says, "It takes place in a rookery," and he like looks at you expectantly because a rookery is like the slums of London, right? Like a rookery is like a slum. There's like gang violence. There's like it's like not a good neighborhood, right? It's
Say
like
the-
it's
The princess is coming to a rookery, London.
she has like a underground way to get there. It's her own little safe haven, but she says it makes her feel adventurous, right? Having her life is bland, always being protected, and so we have guards on staff. Everything is fine. It's a nice estate that is underground. They're only gonna like cut your leg off and like you like whatever. But so that is where all of this takes place. He's like, and you, being 5 of the 7 gentlemen, we
Wait,
have.
wait, wait. I have a question. Do the
Yes.
twins not know each other?
Separated
Fair point.
at birth,
Okay, now
they're being
I
reunited
leave.
for this.
I just
The
gotta
twins
go.
know each other, but
Gotta go now.
but everybody was asked to keep secret from everyone else that they're invited to this party. So the twins
Wait,
don't know.
so
that
have they
the
not
other
talked
twin-
about it?
If they did, that's on them, right? Like being asked. I mean, obviously the 5 of you know you're sort of outside of that,
So
and
I'm not
obviously
surprised. This,
I don't know any of these people.
danger. She's
This guy
throwing
just committed a faux pas.
this princess is throwing this like clearly creepy, like maybe ritualistic, some kind of like voodoo Christmas party, and she's like surprised that her life is being threatened.
she's not surprised. She doesn't care.
So
Then
will
why are we
there
even
be
helping her?
hors d'oeuvres
Of course,
before
I
or
can't
after
help
the ritual
those who don't help
sacrifice?
themselves, Alex.
Like the queen is concerned and her advisor concerned. The princess is like, young and spry and like
She's
doesn't
living
care.
that thug life.
Yeah,
Young and stupid. Yeah.
yeah, she doesn't care. She's like, this is so fun and like crazy. And look at me.
So that's what I'm
could post-
saying. Like, man,
I wish I could
teenagers
post this
wanna
on
get themselves
Instagram.
Killed,
Yeah,
like,
maybe-
how that shit
Anyways.
goes.
So,
But so,
um,
alright, so let me ask you this, Manuel. What exactly is it that you want us to do? Just guard the princess the whole night?
Party.
he says, well, her friend, and he's like, I don't think there's any problem with me telling you her name, but her friend Judith, it's like, if for those of you that do know, the princess surrounds herself with a lot of friends who have known her entire life, and as her friend Judith came to me with self-harm marks. So this is the best way I can put it. And she swore in front. She swore to me in the church on the Bible that she didn't do them. That
So,
they were.
yeah. Do I know any? I have the mystery. Oh, yeah. I have the mysteries skill. Can I?
Yeah. So it's
I used to have
reason
that.
Can you
reason
be
plus
mysterious?
mystery. Reason plus mystery plus flip. Okay. Difficulty
Plus
3.
what? Vision plus mysteries plus what?
Flip a card.
Oh.
You want me to flip one for you?
Yeah. So it's
Sure.
plus 4.
Raw. -4. All right. So that's because I did it.
We can all
So-
draw cards somewhere.
So no, you're unaware. What? So you don't really know, Kevin. Like you.
Yeah,
I thought a
Wait.
0 was like a
it
thing.
sounds weird, but I don't know anything about it.
The difficulty was 3 on this one, Nick. You have to beat the difficulty, right? 0 is for actual physical fighting. So just to wrap things up, he says. So he just finished telling you the story of Judith, right? He says. So Judith swears she had self marks. They were weeks old, and she said that she got them yesterday from staying with the princess. Now
Seems
her
weird.
maids, he says, her maids corroborated her story that she did not have these marks over the past few days. He says, I looked into the maids. He's like, now Judith is also attending.
You believe the maids?
He says, I checked with more than just the maids. Her parents, right? Like she's always.
I asked the demons.
She says she's always worn very short sleeve dresses, which were maybe a little bit too promiscuous. But over the past day and a half that I've seen her, she started wearing, like hand length, like up to here, wrist length, essentially, dresses to cover them up. And
Finally found Jesus.
she's been out and about over the past 2. I believe, John, I think you had some sort of gathering maybe early, maybe a week ago, where she was, and I believe many sources remember her wearing a short sleeve dress, and I feel like those scars would have been much easier noticeable. So
Don't
this
personally
is
recall the occasion, but it's very possible.
I had
Thanks,
several
John.
parties that day. You'll have to be more specific.
so he says
I
there's
don't recall one where everyone was wearing clothing, but you know, I could be wrong.
So he says there's a few more things, and he that we can start with next session next week. He says there's like a few more things. There's actually some other things that he wants to walk you guys through before. So it's the 23rd. Tomorrow noon, right? So the 24th noon, essentially 24 hours from right now, is when the party starts. So
Did we ever
He wants
find out
to-
what kind of a change of clothes we were supposed to bring?
Just fucking with you.
he says, "Oh, I meant for the." He says, "Whatever you were wearing, I didn't think it was suited for the royal court at the time." So
So
Just-
you thought that
brought
rather
this
than
song.
rather than changing into something, we thought we should bring something random and then wear something.
Well, it doubles your
So what-
chances of
what
having
am I
an
gonna
appropriate
do with
set
this
of
bathing
clothing.
suit?
Well, that's true. You could have just said dress for an appointment with the queen. I mean,
Says,
No, no, he's a
he said,
gambler.
"I'm sorry.
He
I was
doesn't live his
I
life
was
like
very
that.
nervous. I was very nervous."
No, it's just
I'm just saying,
understandable.
some of us have gone to Lord Neville's parties before. We have an idea about how to dress for just about any circumstance. So
He says, "I
Usually
couldn't."
full
If
hazmat
you go to a
suit
Han
for
party,
those.
you bring like 3 changes of clothes.
yeah, if not your entire wardrobe in a large, cabin that you attach
Elite.
to his house.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for watching.
We
Sorry.
apologize.
This has been
Not to
Life from
worry.
Beyond.
Next week, all of us will be leaving. You won't have to be subjected to any of this anymore.
Well, so next week we'll get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty of the mechanics, and we'll continue with our
We just
story.
want to know why the princess is a witch.
I don't really care as long as Ulysses F. Winterfig fucking burns her or whatever it is he
We
does.
don't-
Yeah,
we don't
there's gonna be
have-
some burning.
We don't have
What does the
anybody
F
to
stand
hunt her.
for?
What?
What's that?
What does the F stand for in Ulysses F. Winterfig?
Are you kidding? You have to ask?
Yeah, come on.
I can't imagine that I would explain that to you.
What a faux pas.
Alex, are you saying that we don't have anyone to hunt Arabella? That doesn't sound right.
We don't have any witch hunters. I wish we had more, but this is all
I'm
we
a
got.
witch hunter.
I know, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I was like,
I
oh,
always thought you were a suit of armor.
Aren't you some kind of chandelier?
So thank you, players, for watching. Sorry, for playing. Thank you, audience, for watching.
And playing.
We did, we did something.
For watching.
If you're
Don't
still
thank
here,
them, just apologize.
yeah. And if you're watching us here on Twitch, catch us on YouTube. And if you're watching us on YouTube, catch us on Tuesday on Twitch, where we continue with part 2.
7:30 p.m. Eastern Time.